was an experimental API, unfortunately did not land in 1.11. So now we will land it in 1.12, and that is a P0. Telemetry API to alpha. So finish all the metrics, access logging, and that, and then there is a persistent request for sort of better Envoy native stats support. So we need to make some headway there. So the first one is P0, the second one is P1. Rate limit API design. So in the last quarter, we basically did some work there, but we discovered that it does need much wider consensus, and there are many more dependencies potentially. So we have to put that back on the agenda. Middle proxy is now coming up often, and we've had middle proxy telemetry on sort of the menu for a while, but I think now there are other reasons to do it. And what I expect here is to be able to produce doc that says, here's the design, and this is the equivalence or lack thereof between a sidecar and middle proxy telemetry. One of the other things which we discussed in the previous quarter, actually it came up a couple of times, but Rama brought it up for his specific use case, is that to add open telemetry provider. And once we have open telemetry provider, it does open up like many other integrations. So a lot of this work is going to be to actually document and then blog about how to do it. And then metadata discovery service is again, so Mixer was a metadata discovery service, which we got rid of a long time ago. And since then, we have had, again, another persistent request. And even that is becoming, I think, important for other reasons now. So in the previous 1.11, it was a P2. This time it is slightly higher, and it has one primary owner and a secondary owner. So that's it. We have, yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, I guess for me, I don't understand the middle proxy telemetry design. I don't know if other members understood that.
So gateway, like telemetry that's based on purely gateway, right? So the gateway telemetry works great at ingress, because it mostly talks about kind of where the traffic is headed, and doesn't talk a whole lot about where the traffic is coming from. Because once you're in ingress, there are many more places that the traffic could come from. When you have a middle proxy, actually both sides are quite nicely bounded, and you can produce full telemetry just like a sidecar would, and that's what middle proxy telemetry would give you. So almost full, correct.
So the user benefit is to help us to have visibility into the source of whichever traffic accessing the gateway.
Right, correct. and and that's where it intersects with the metadata discovery service as well, because knowing information about the source of the traffic is also needed.
Okay, thank you.
And Doug is surprised to see this on the agenda. Doug, do you want to add something here? Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, what's the
you have
actual benefit of the metadata discovery service?
Benefit of the metadata discovery service is that you can take an IP address and or any other identity and map it back to its attributes. And so, for example, if you have a middle proxy where some of the clients of the middle proxy are not in the mesh, then being able to resolve um, who's the source of that traffic back to its metadata is what metadata discovery service gives you.
I see.
I would say it's coupled with what we discussed last week in networking, where the micro proxy can completely go away if the network infrastructure provides you the same thing, and then you need this metadata service to actually resolve IP, secure IP with metadata.
And again, like without getting into too many details, but there is a very good chance that we will be able to just use Istio's infrastructure and another XDS resource to actually provide this, but that will all be part of the design. Yes, DNS as well, Austin.
Is
All
there
right.
any performance work on the agenda, Mander?
No performance work on the agenda in 112, not in the.
Well, the middle proxy is performance work.
Well, yeah. So one of the things that could have been on the agenda is a faster version of the telemetry filters, but it did not make it into this roadmap. Unless you're suggesting we should put it there.
I mean, it's useful to track it for visibility. You could obviously record it as P2.
Okay. I will record this P2.
So, Mander, one thing that would be great to also track as P2 or something. We are working on proxyless gRPC and some other things. I mean, the micro proxy that was discussed last week. Would be good to have some thought about how we collect telemetry in those cases where envoy is not in the path, or make the full instead of almost full with middle proxies, because we need some
Okay.
data from the client.
So Costin, I will put you as one of the main owners here, and then we can add, like we can take it from there.
Yep, sure.
Okay.
And if micro proxy as well, that was discussed, it's because they are very similar in.
Okay, you want me to stop presenting, Mander? Take that as a yes. security, Oliver or someone?
Yeah, I can present.
Okay.
Thanks, Lin.
Louis, are you going to bring up the doc or?
Yeah, I can bring it up.
Okay, right, thanks.
I can get started. The first one is, oh yeah, between Lin, Shankar, and I think the first one also includes, yeah, some alignment, like across what we already doing, and inside Google and their external OSS part. So we want to gather design template for their external certificate provisioning API and their SDS configuration API. Currently, they are using either environment variables or mesh config. We want to move them out and use CRDs to define those APIs. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there is already an existing design, but we want to iterate on it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so the next one is improvement on security policy. Yeah, so Marco and Yangming are working on improving the Istio troubleshooting for MTLS and authorization. Yeah, they already shared design earlier, and I think the initial implementation has been done, but yeah, they need to complete the implementation. And the second part is Yami is working on supporting extracting George claim to HTTP header. He already shared the design to the security working group and also networking working group. I think there are several use cases. One is to use George claim based routing, and the other use case is customer wants to use the George claim as a HTTP header in their application. So his design is going to address both use cases. Yeah, and next is feature graduation. We have a bunch of security features we want to graduate. So for the external authorization feature, yeah, we want to promote it from experimental to alpha. Auto MTLS, promoting auto MTLS is actually mostly done. There is a few leftover item, I think mostly on support side. I think Jianfei is plans to complete it. Yeah, and for promoting security policy API to stable, I think for the P0 is to scoping of the work needed. So yeah, so Yami plans to probably write a doc to put down what are the work needed to graduate the API. Yeah, and lastly is
yeah. So this one promoting external CA integration feature from experimental to alpha. It's owned by Shankar. Currently, we have this. Our customers are using it already. We want to promote it at least to alpha, shooting for that goal in the next release. Yeah, the last one also belongs to me. Improvements on the documentation. Currently, we have the security concept page, which is pretty long. We are halfway there to get this improved to make it much shorter by moving some of the contents into their tasks or best practice documentation. And also didn't mention it here. We also we'll add more tasks for the concept page as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's all we have. Any questions, comments?
For the documentation improvements, will that include the automated tests?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I will add that as well. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So Oliver, this is on the concept page only, or also the task page?
Only the concept page. We only meet the automated tests on the concept page. I think that's what Brian was saying. He's also talking about the same.
Yeah, I know the best practices pages too, but I don't know if that belongs to security or product security.
Right. Yep. We can resolve that in our product security working group goals.
Yep.
Yeah.
This looks good to me.
Yeah, me too. We should make sure the auto MTLS stuff is well aligned with the micro proxy proposal. Not that it blocks the promotion of the existing feature to stable, but well, what we were going to do next.
Yeah. So Louis, you are talking about the microservice proposal. That's the on the networking roadmap agenda, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Seems like we're all done here.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Mitch, you want to talk about upgrade experience?
Sounds good. Can you guys see my presentation?
Yep.
Great. So for just a little bit of context, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about extending support for either the 1.9 or 1.10 release. And we sort of heard that we would like to see updated feedback. The user experience working group conducts these surveys every quarter. With every release, we survey our users, particularly on their upgrade experience. And I haven't had a readout of this since April. So this will be covering the 1.10 release. So as you may recall, last fall, we found that users had a lot of confusion around vulnerability exposure and that there were a lot of concerns around the safety of upgrade process. So we reorganized our 2021 roadmap around improving the upgrade experience. The feedback we showed in April with 1.9 was our first release that had been reorganized around upgrade experience. And we found that there was some improvement. We'd moved the needle, but there was still quite a long ways to go. Looking at our 1.10 survey, we got 27 respondents, which is about double what we got for the 1.9 survey. And the reason for that is that now our surveys are open starting on the release date and more or less open indefinitely. They're also now a part of the upgrade process. Both Helm and Istio Cuddle will dump a small message to the user asking them to fill out a survey about their experience upgrading. I'm sorry, I need to mute this other tab so that I can focus. There we go. All right, so the first question that we ask our users is to get an idea of the maturity of their installations. you'll notice that as a change from 1.9, we saw a lot more users who have had only some of their meshes or some test meshes, fewer production installations than we saw in 1.10 or 1.9. Sorry, this is because we had the survey open from day one. So this is an expected change. Some users will have upgraded only one cluster and then immediately have gone to fill out the survey. Others, as you can see, will have upgraded all of their production meshes before giving us feedback. So we have pretty well-rounded feedback from first impressions to pretty mature installations. We measure satisfaction versus the progress of installation. And in 1.9, we had a light skew to the positive side with some concerning, let's see, none of this is particularly concerning, but the skew was light, and of course we didn't have a lot of respondents, only 13 respondents in 1.9. Looking to 1.10, we have a much stronger and clearer skew towards a positive upgrade experience. For reference, 1 would be a significantly worse experience than before. 3 would be about the same, and 5 would be a significantly better upgrade experience than previous versions of Istio. You can also see that this response, this strong bias towards the positive, is pretty evenly distributed across users who have only just begun their process of upgrading or who have completed upgrading all of their meshes to Istio 1.10. The next question, again in 1.9, we asked for areas where we've seen the most improvement versus areas where we need the most improvement. This is what we saw in 1.9, fairly even across the areas where we saw positive. Revision-based upgrades had 2 showing improvement, 2 saying it needs more improvement. Upgrade stability biasing slightly positive. Skip version upgrades being the most popular request in 1.9. In 1.10, revision-based upgrades biases much more strongly positive, which is great news. This is an area that the Environments Working Group has been investing in for quite some time, and we're beginning to see positive feedback from our users on revision-based upgrades. We'll look a little bit more at that later. Our users are happy with upgrade tooling and stability, but still, skip version upgrades are a very strong ask from our users, the ability to upgrade from 1.8 to 1.10, 1.9 to 1.11 within the support window. Questions there?
Yeah, for the skip version upgrade responses, are these people who tried skip version upgrades and it just went badly and they wanted a better experience, or they just want that feature?
So we did not get any qualitative feedback from these users on why they selected skip version upgrades. So skip version upgrades are supported within 1.10, so you can upgrade from 1.8 to 1.10. And that was announced shortly after the 1.10 release. However, you can't do it within the support window. Like 1.8 went out of support before skip version upgrades from 1.8 to 1.10 were possible. So my reading of this feedback is that users expect a fully supported experience in upgrading Istio twice per year. Sam, I do have a section at the end where I'm going to ask for qualitative questions. We've gotten contact information from a lot of users who said that they would be interested in being interviewed. So we can dig more deeply into that in those interviews as well.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yep. When we asked our users if they preferred in-place upgrades or revision-based upgrades, we saw a big change release over release. The sort of pastel bars in the donut graph are the 1.9 responses. In 1.9, we saw more than half of our users prefer in-place upgrades, and then more users not understand what their upgrade posture was than prefer revision-based, which was disheartening because this is somewhere we've invested a lot. Well, in this release, the needle has moved substantially. Users prefer revision-based upgrades slightly over in-place upgrades. We do still have a large swath of users who don't know how they upgrade Istio, which I don't know what conclusion to draw from that. But it is great to see revision-based upgrades gaining some traction here. excellent work from the environments working group.
Is
When we
it safe to assume that the people who don't know are either new users or are doing in place and don't understand revision based?
I have divided like feelings on that. On the one hand, if you just run an install command without any special flags, you get in place. On the other hand, if you've copied your install command from anywhere in the Istio documentation, you've very likely gotten a revision-based upgrade.
Istio upgrade is in place, which I think probably also confuses people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So looking at this question here, to me, it specifically asks which one you prefer, which says to me we might have users who have tried both and not actually figured out which one they really want to use long-term yet.
That's a great point. The question is not focused on behavior, but on preference, and I don't know is a valid preference. We did ask for qualitative feedback on why they had that preference. Interestingly, one of the users who responded they don't know said that they prefer I don't know because it's more stable. So there might be some confusion about the nature of the question there. The users who prefer in place, we have some people calling it stable and predictable. Not having time to do the canary or revision-based upgrade is a concern. Then again, when you're working in production, moving fast is not necessarily the best. For the users who prefer revision-based upgrade, by the way, last time we only had one person explain why they preferred revision-based upgrade. So having 3 this time, again, big improvement in this area. And we are seeing that perception is changing. There's more safety. There's more stability. We can move progressively. These are exactly the things that we have been saying about revision-based upgrade now for over a year, but we're finally getting through to our users and they're agreeing with us, which I think is a really big deal. We asked our users what they consider the riskiest part of an upgrade. Similar to 1.9, this is a mixed bag. Control plane, data plane, some gateways, not a strong signal there. Also, I tried dividing this by the various, what am I trying to say? By the various maturities of installation, and there's just no strong correlation in any direction there. A lot of diversity of perspective. This did not come from the survey, but it's relevant to the discussion at hand. I know 2 weeks ago, when we were discussing which release we should extend the life cycle of, one of the comments was that the 1.10 release should have much higher adoption than 1.9. This chart shows the number of pods running components of Istio in each version on GKE using only open source Istio. And as you can see, 1.9 is far and away the most popular release. In terms of release lifecycle, where 1.10 is at now, with about 3 months after the release, 1.9 had about 30%, or sorry, 50% more pods running at that time. So we're seeing a lot of strong adoption on 1.9. Adoption on 1.10 is not weak by any means for where it's at. You can follow this curve, and it's not substantially slower than the 1.8 curve or the 1.9 curve, but it is lagging behind. So that's just sort of another data point for what we're seeing in the wild in terms of Istio adoption. Questions there? All right. So takeaways are, again, revision-based upgrades. I am just super thrilled to see that finally catching on with our users. Still a strong expectation about those direct upgrades or skip version upgrades. And looking forward, we do already have the 1.11 survey open. It's been open since day 1 for Istio 1.11 with links in all the appropriate places after upgrade. But it's been about a year since we've conducted a survey that focused on anything other than upgrade behavior and experience. So if you have suggestions on what you would like to see collected in the fall, it's probably time to do a more universal survey for Istio user experience. Questions for the qualitative interviews are also welcome. And then one last point I wanted to highlight here. These surveys have been using Google Forms up until now. which is not accessible in China. So we are considering other platforms for hosting these surveys that would be more globally accessible to our user base. We do have a very strong user base in mainland China, and we don't want to be instructing them to, bypass a national firewall in order to give us feedback. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Mitch. This is very encouraging data. And I do agree with you about the wider survey. I was actually just thinking about this recently, especially with the roadmap documentation, we're trying to produce. I think it aligns really well if we can collect some type of global survey, not only just for Upgrade, especially Upgrade has been improved quite a bunch now.
Yeah, I think that it's about time for that, and I'll be putting together a document in the UX folder before long, sort of soliciting questions or themes that we could address in that next survey, and I'd love your feedback on that, Lynn.
Yeah, I'd like to collaborate with you for sure.
Great.
Seems like on the next one, right now we're talking a lot about in place versus revisions. We may want to add something about tags. And if that causes a lot of confusion, then that's a sign that we've poorly documented the new tags feature. So I think even that would be a good signal. But I would, in theory, hope that once we start pushing that, then in place becomes, revisions becomes both more used and gets better ratings. And that would be a good way to prove if that's working as expected.
Yep, I have referenced tags in the 111 upgrade survey, so we should start getting feedback on that. We don't have any respondents yet who have upgraded to 111, but that's, it's not surprising at this point.
Alrighty. Mitch, do you want to stop presenting?
Yes.
Thanks for presenting that, Mitch.
My pleasure. Thanks for tuning in.
So Mitch, just a quick question as we throw into the next topic. The data you have on GKE, that's regardless which, there's no subset of user. It will be, I guess, a general data from GKE, because your other survey is specific for 110, right? So people may not take time to even look at 110, so they wouldn't even spend time to look at that survey. So it's a very targeted set of sampling data from the 27 participants. But the GKE data you presented, that's just a wide range of data, right?
That's right. That's all users of open source Istio on Google that are not internal projects like our testing or our performance projects or things like that.
I see. That's very cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Are we hoping to make a decision today on which release to extend support on, or is that something for another week? That was the context that I had brought this topic up in, but I'm not sure if you all feel like you have enough data with this or not.
Yes, that was the contact. It might be good for us to think through the data a little bit and reconvene next week. I don't know, Louis, what do you think?
Do we have quorum to talk about it?
We have the quorum. The only thing is Neeraj is sick today. I know he's been very vocal about 1.9. Yeah.
We should probably make sure Neeraj is here. We don't have any impending deadlines. Mitch, right there, there is no support window closing.
There's sort of a vague deadline. Technically, the 1.9 support window was supposed to have closed last week.
And we
I
didn't.
believe that the CVE that's currently being worked on will also have a 1.9 patch release for it.
It will.
week. I don't know if our intention is then to announce that support for 1.9 has ended, or if maybe we can just leave it vague until a decision has been made. I'm not sure.
It certainly seems reasonable to keep it open until this is resolved in the TOC. So I would certainly vote in favor of that right now. Does anybody in the TOC object?
That sounds reasonable to me.
So
Okay.
I'm just going to kept that as a note.
And what exactly are we going to tell users? Because if we decide we're not going to keep 1.9 support when we resolve the issue, then we'll just suddenly drop the support. So I feel like we don't want to tell users that it's supported up until some arbitrary date that we make a decision.
So what we've communicated so far is that the support, we announced that support would last till, what is it, 90 days past the release of 1.10, which elapsed on August, I think, 17th. Normally, we also do give, I think it's maybe a 3-week or a 4-week heads up to users. Hey, support for this release is ending on this date. That announcement did not go out, as far as I can tell, for the 1.9 release. So we've already been more silent than normal about the end of support for this release.
That one did go out. It says August 24th.
Oh, did it? Sorry, I
Yeah.
missed that.
No problem.
Could you put a link to that in, John, if you have that handy?
Yeah.
So we already announced that it's no longer supported. We sent the announcement.
We announced that it will not be supported starting on tomorrow.
And we cannot take it back.
Oh, we can definitely take it back. That's just what
Oh,
we've
yeah.
said. But I think it would be confusing to say, actually, 1.9 is supported until some arbitrary date where we make a decision, which could be tomorrow or 3 weeks from now. Or a year from now. Hopefully
I will
not.
say it should be less disruptive to announce more support than we've committed to, or to implicitly supply more support than we've committed to, than to say it'll be another month and then have it not be another month, if that makes sense.
And I was going to say, depending on how close customers looked, we actually initially said it was August 17th, and we bumped it to the 24th because of the security releases tomorrow, and we are releasing a later 1.9.
I'm fine with bumping it to a specific date. I just don't want to bump to an undefined date that may be sooner or later. And I think that I think we already have all the info that we need to make a decision. So if we're going to be doing things like this, it almost seems like we better just come to a vote or something, or whatever we need to do to reach consensus this week or so.
I mean, Niraj is pretty pro extending the release window, right? Is that a fair characterization of Niraj's historical position?
I think so. I think everyone is fine with extending it, but the question, and correct me if I'm wrong there, the question is how long do we extend it? 12 more weeks, 6 more weeks? Do we do even odd releases, and do we start with 1.9 or 1.10? I believe are the 3 open decisions.
Even that 1.9 announcement was sent isn't a bit.
We should probably write those down as open questions.
That was my take, at least. If anyone else has open trade-offs, then feel free to add them.
Sorry, John, what was the third thing you said?
Whether we start with 1.9 or 1.10 or something else.
Well, we could start capturing people's positions on these topics. And so just so we narrow down, how long to extend for? It was by one release. Was there some other possible measurement of extension? Just a
Yeah,
number of
we
days?
discussed a 6-week extension, so that way we don't have as many overlapping ones, but you still get, like right now, you basically have to skip level upgrade in 1 day if you want to stay in the window. So this would give you a 6-week window, but we don't have the full overlap, which also means that we end up with an extra release during this time when we cut the branch and we have master and next release, and then the 3 previous supported releases. So actually, yeah.
So it's really 12 weeks, right? Which gives us, on average, n-2, but periodically n-3.
Yeah, for the development branch.
Well, I guess it depends on what we consider support, right? The master branch is not typically supported.
It's really 5 branches. There's master, the next one, and then the 3 supported releases. So only 3 of them are supported for users, but 5 are required for actually landing a change for developers. Yeah. Whereas with the 6 weeks, it's only 4 at most for developers.
So basically we're saying 1 release or half a release.
Yeah, and also don't forget the releases, John, you are counting. It's not just Istio, right? I assume it apply to docs and proxies, so it's like a whole different things. So 4 and 5, it could be a big difference.
So John, how do you end up with 5 releases for having, so you end up with n-3, right?
Yeah, so there's 3 supported releases, but then you have to go to the next branch once we cut the branch but haven't released it yet, and master. So for a 1-month window, there's 5 releases, and for everything else, there's 4 that a developer needs to backport to.
So main, upcoming, and n-3.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's only sometimes that we actually have n-3, right?
In the 1 release, so we always have main and n-3, and for 1 month we have main n-3 and upcoming. In the other case, we have main n-2, main n-3, and main n-2 and upcoming, which sounds a lot more complicated, but I don't think users are thinking of it like that, hopefully. But you'll notice none of those have 5 releases at once.
That also depends on whether we do every release extended or even odd extended.
That is true, yeah.
Right.
We have skip release tests for all the 5 or 4 combinations.
We do.
Running all
Yeah, those are done at pre-submit.
Skip version upgrade for all 4. I mean, from 1.9 to 1.10, 1.9 to 1.11, 1.10 to 1.11. All the permutations are tested at pre-submit.
Yes.
So it's a little late here, but I just thought of this. The concern is really about skip level upgrades, right?
That's the user feature driving the demand is.
So
skip level upgrade is a symptom of customers only wanting to run a certain number of upgrades a year.
Yeah, more my question there was, if we make sure that these skip level upgrades work do we need to do all of the effort in patching and security releases and everything like that?
So the skip rate upgrades already were, or sorry, skip version upgrades, which we're communicating to the users and calling them direct upgrades for clarity's sake, or lack of clarity maybe in hindsight. But anyway, that's what we called them. They already are supported and they are thoroughly tested, both across in-place and revision-based, in Helm, and in using Istio control. So those are functional. However, in order to make use of them currently, our users must allow their existing install to lapse in terms of support.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
It takes our users somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 12 weeks to perform an upgrade, depending on how aggressive they are and how large their installs are. And the idea is to provide them with support during that upgrade period.
Yep.
So one question is, was this, this data that we collected, the feedback from users about LTS and generally things like that, did that already factor in our support for skip level upgrades, or was this feedback obtained prior to us really supporting skip level upgrades?
We have both. The 1.9 survey was conducted before skip level upgrades were provided for users. The 1.10 survey, I think all of the respondents would have come in after we announced that support. Whether they particularly saw that blog post or not is I can't answer that question.
Okay. So on this skip level upgrade, I mean, we do have some tests, but you know, the upgrade process, even for N to N+1, has always been pretty complicated, pretty risky with real applications and all kind of things that users need to do. I'm not sure it's safe to claim that we support arbitrary, you know, N-X versions upgrade with what we have right now. I mean, it's super superficial in my opinion.
I mean, we've already announced that, Costin. We announced that in May.
I know, but you know, I don't know. It's doubling down on something that was pretty shaky in the first place seems not very useful for users because there are all kind of corner cases, as you know. I mean, it's okay, whatever. It's Istio. We support everything.
Okay, I mean, I think we have enough information to capture TOC members' opinions on each of the three things. Right, and the primary one in the 12 weeks versus 6 weeks. So how would we explain to users the difference between the 12-week one and the 6-week one? What would we now say about how long a release is supported for? Is it just adjusting the existing thing by adding 6 weeks to the number? So we say it's now supported by we say 90 days right now, right? So we'd say 135 days.
We could do that, or rather than saying the subsequent release, we could say the next subsequent release. I'm not sure which is clearer for users.
You'd have to say 45 days before the next subsequent release.
No, so it'd be 45 days. So if like we're talking about 1.9, it would be supported until 45 days after 1.11 ships.
Okay.
Right now it's supported more or less until 1.11 ships, with a little bit of variability depending on if a release slips or things like that.
All right, let me capture what we think the message would be. 1.9 is supported until 6 weeks after ships. And the message, if we were a whole release, 1.9 is supported until 1.12 ships, right?
Yeah.
And on the even odd thing, vendors who support releases further back, are any of you doing an even odd or LTS like thing?
Not
I know
today.
Google
I
is
believe
not.
that Aspen Mesh does this.
Okay. Let me capture.
And I think it's actually that they don't even ever support the versions that are not. Every other version they just never ship.
I see. So they only deal with the odd release, I assume, like 1.9.
That's the
1.7,
impression
1.9.
I got, but I'm not 100% sure.
Jake, oh, there you go.
Yeah, no, yeah, so we can only support 1.6 and 1.9. So it's typically every 2 to 3 releases. There's no even and odd.
Okay.
I see.
So
we're in a similar position as well. I think we're currently supporting 1.4, 1.6, and soon 1.9.
sorry, who was that? I was trying to
Rob.
Red Hat.
Red Hat. Okay. So you basically, anyone else want to chime in here? So
Do we have anyone from the IBM team, Eric?
Other than me, I mean, we could ask Andrea to see, or Frank.
Yeah. I think.
I guess Andrea's there.
Yeah, I'm here.
and so ask the mesh folks, when you do select a release, how long do you support it for?
We basically until until we have like a following release that we wish to support. So like 1.6 is still being supported, but we will be ending that soon. So there's not really a set timeline. It's more or less, until we can actually get the next version that we do want to support, and then we, give people probably about 6 months to migrate.
Okay, so it's n-1 plus 6 months migration window.
Yeah, around that time.
Okay, I'll capture that. Brian, what does Red Hat do, or something else?
Yeah, we do n-2 of, or we'll do n-2 of our releases, but the older releases we only do critical and important CVEs and critical bug fixes. So
for how long?
Until the whatever release is going to end of life that. So I think like where we're at now, coming up with a release based on 1.9, we would be supporting 1.4, 1.6, and 1.9 until we moved to a later release. And I think, this just has to do with our internal versioning, but because of the differences between 1.4, right, and later, that one may perhaps linger longer, but once again, that would be just critical patches. Typically would be n-2. So once we move to 1.11, we would only be supporting 1.11 and 1.9, and we would drop support for 1.6.
Okay, so it's not really n-2 then, right? It's n-1.
It's our n-2, yeah. Or n-1, yeah, because we're really only doing the 2 most current. We're still in the process of figuring out what we're going to do for long-term support. Because I guess you could say technically, we have 1.4 is sort of unofficially that, because we're maintaining support of it, because we don't have a migration path from 1.4 to 1.6. So that requires users to, install fresh and migrate.
Okay. So you have some exceptions to the pattern.
Yeah, if we need to make exceptions, we make exceptions. Correct. So like if something came out like 1.11 and you couldn't upgrade from 1.9, we would cut a new release and, call it, whatever our next major version number is, and say we don't support upgrade from 1.9 to 1.11. We do that on a product. We try not to do that. So we would, but the changes, with the removal of Mixer and Galley and all that were significant in, didn't really support doing, and because we support in-place upgrades, right? So not really something that you can do in place.
Okay, folks, I think I have to drop, but the TOC members, why don't you annotate what's here with your preference, so at least we get the ball rolling, even if we roll into next week.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Oops.
Thank you.